Tonight on Reel to Reel, we'll join John Faford and Rosemary Kona on an Engaged Encounter weekend.
And discover some Iowa prison inmates as they search for Christ.
Mike Gallagher will be along with a review of A Soldier's Story.
And Father Tom Legere will talk about our spiritual roots. Hello, I'm Isabel Gauvry-LaGrosse.
And I'm Father Dave McGowan. Welcome to this edition of Reel to Reel. In the past, I've had the opportunity to visit a prison and several prisoners. One common experience that the inmates relate is the abundance of time which allows them to reflect on their past and the experiences that brought them to a jail cell. Of the men I've talked to, they all recognize that something serious has been missing in their lives.
Often this something is spiritual identity. In our first story tonight, we'll see how one state institution is working to bring Christ into the lives of its inmates.
How do we explain them? You tell me not to lie, but I don't have the guts to tell him my mother was down. And he's 16, you know. Everybody makes mistakes.
For this woman and the nearly 100 like her, coping with confinement is a continual challenge. These are the residents of the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women. Their average age is 29, and over half are here in Mitchellville for property crimes. 74% are mothers. Nearly 3/4 of the women have been sentenced to 10 years or less, but 20% expect to spend between 25 years and the rest of their lives within these fenced-in grounds. Though it is a state institution, the ICIW has a responsibility to allow residents to practice their faith. Superintendent Susan Hunter feels much more can be done.
The women also have a need for opportunities, I think, to improve their self-concept or their sense of who they are as a person. By the time someone comes to prison, most times they're feeling pretty low in their life. They don't usually have a good work record. Many times they've dropped out of school. Oftentimes they've had problems with their family because of their criminal activity. And then the state also and the community says that you're a failure by sending them to prison. So we tend to get people who are at the lowest, probably one of the lowest points in their life that they'll ever be. And so I think there's a real direction then given to correctional institutions about how do you try to build people up again and not just crush them when they come into a prison. And so I think that there's, you know, lots of ways that the faith community, as you call it, can assist in that process of how you help a person pull their life together again.
Both volunteers and a growing number of residents are working hard to build that faith community. The part-time chaplain conducts weekly Bible classes assisted by persons of various faiths.
You look at Jesus, what do you see? What qualities in Jesus are God-like qualities?
Gentleness,
forgiveness,
love, wisdom, power, justice,
compassion.
Everything good. Yeah.
Weekly church services are also held for Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim residents, and an interfaith seminar is being planned. All staff members recently participated in a training session on religious beliefs and practices. The goal? Greater staff sensitivity to the religious needs of the women. But the most sensitizing and powerful religious experience within this facility has been a voluntary weekend called Residents Encounter Christ, or REC. Inmate Cheryl Case explains what happens.
When many of us walked through the gym doors the other night, we walked in here alone. We walked in here not really accepted. We weren't sure what to expect. We too felt unaccepted and unwanted and truly loved. Some of you women came for the 22 contact hours. I understand that. Last time, I signed up for the contact hours. Some of us came because some nut somewhere along the line talked us into it. And that's for real. Oh, well, in order to get her off my back, I'll do this so she can shut up and leave me alone. And I understand that, because I was probably the nut that talked you into it. Some of us came because we were searching for something or someone. We weren't quite sure what we were looking for or where we were going to find it. For 3 days, we left a serious community, a prison community, and we came in here and we formed another community, one of love. We formed a family, a very important family, a supportive family, one that we know will dwell within us.
Forming that family includes small group prayer and sharing, talks, and visually expressing a new understanding of God's love and care. Leadership is given by a team of volunteers and residents.
Pride can cause you a mountain of trouble. It can stop you from caring whether or not Jane's hurting. It can stop you from doing what you really believe in within your heart. When somebody comes in and everybody's laughing because she don't have the same color socks on. So what? She's probably got another pair upstairs in the drawer just like them. That's something you didn't think about, huh? So why stand there and laugh? Why join in the crowd over here and laugh? Because that's not what Christ is about.
A sign of commitment to Christian discipleship is part of the weekend.
You're called to give. And as a commitment to that responsibility of giving, and as a sign of it, we want to give you yet another memento of this weekend. It's a cross with all that goes with the cross and Jesus on it. We want you to wear it. Wear it proudly. Don't be ashamed of it. Tell the other people in this community inside these fences that you've done something special, that you got something special, and that you are something special. I'm going to ask one of you, as you feel inclined, to come up, and I'm going to put this cross around your neck, and then you'll stand where I am, and someone else can come forward and repeat that same process.
I have just returned, and I had put God off to the side to worry about other things. And I can just say that, you know, my faith is to the fullest now. And he don't ever have to worry about me ever turning him away. He will always be with me no matter what I do.
Well, the thing I got the most out of it, would have had to have been, I guess, my self-confidence. I feel like I belong. You tend not to here. You feel different. You feel like you don't fit in. But when you get all these people coming in from the inside, there's hugs, and, you know, you can tell you're loved. And that's very important in here, to know people still care. You're not just shut behind the walls. So that's been great for me.
Regular Catholic volunteers, Sybil Lynn, Father John Gorman, and Mary Kennedy, echo the value of these religious experiences and their own enrichment through the relationships formed with these women.
I think people on the outside of this institution primarily think that everybody here is bad. And I would say that the large majority of them have just been caught for things other people have done and not been caught for. And there's not a person here that isn't worth saving.
One of them said the other day I had problems, so I called in 3 of my friends and knelt down beside my bed and prayed over it. Probably never happened if it wasn't for the wreck.
I come to meet the Christ that is here. And I think each one of the religious volunteers feel that way, that, you know, Christ is in this prison, and we come to enhance that relationship for ourselves and for the residents, and we form a Christian community here.
We've been taught how to love. No one can tell us to hate again. No one.
My goal for this institution, because it's in my environment, would be to see it Christianized, to see everyone here feel better about themselves, to have a God relationship, to know that they are important. It's pretty lofty, but we're working on it.
Day by day by day by day by day.
With all the horror stories we hear about life in prison, it's encouraging to see an example of inmates who are discovering the way.
We're going to break away now, but when we return, we'll join engaged couples on the road to marriage, so don't go away.
Pope John Paul II has praised the Catholic press for its truth in witnessing to the faith. You can support both the Catholic press and education by subscribing to the Catholic Standard and Times. During the annual subscription drive, students and schools benefit from scholarships and financial incentives, while subscribers receive regular, accurate, and detailed information on what's happening in the church today. Share the challenge of Catholic education. Support and subscribe to your newspaper, the Catholic Standard and Times. For more information, call 587-3666.
A couple of weeks ago, we met John Faford and Rosemary Kona, an engaged couple taking preliminary steps toward their future together.
As part of their premarital preparation, John and Rosemary are attending Engaged Encounter. The encounter is run by a team that includes a priest, but also married couples who share their experiences. Join us now as John and Rosemary discover things about themselves and each other that they never knew.
I think the reason why I decided that I wanted to get married is because, first of all, I think not only is there what I like about John, but I think there's a lot about John that's the same as me. I think most of our values and our goals are the same.
It gets to the point where you just decide that we're happy with each other, but we need to spend more time together. And I think that's the point that we both reached.
Rosemary Kona and John Faford are about to make an Engaged Encounter weekend. A spin-off of the worldwide Marriage Encounter program, Engaged Encounter fulfills the premarital instruction requirement in many dioceses. The weekend invites couples to explore more deeply their relationship to each other, to God, and to the world. 2 lay couples and a priest work as team leaders for the weekend.
We're not here to tell you how to live, because we don't have it made. We work at our marriage every day, and we really hope that you will too. We wish we could tell you that we had a magic formula for a good marriage, but we don't. We're not counselors, we're just ordinary married couples. We're probably just going to be here to give you a chance to look inside of a marriage, to share some of our successes and some of our failures.
And we've had a lot of failures too.
And hopefully we can tell you what we've learned from them. And I think we're sharing our own stories so that maybe they can relate to some of what we're saying.
And not so much to get to know us, but to see that marriage is not a smooth, easy-flowing stream, but rather that
it takes work, that we have to work at it. And if they can see that we've worked at it and that I guess we're reasonably successful, because we're married 25 years, I think that gives them hope.
I share with Will our concern that you be able to have the greatest possible start to your marriage. And a concern that we, all of us together as church, can make all of you, Catholic and non-Catholic alike, feel our care and concern and our wanting for you to have a happy married life.
Thus, the Engaged Encounter has begun. For the rest of the weekend, John and Rosemary will follow a pattern of reflecting on the team presentations alone before sharing their thoughts with each other.
I think the time I spent as an individual was really good for me, especially because I'm the type of person that I'm initially more honest on paper, and once I have a thought written down, it's easier for me to discuss it. So I think by the time that I met with Rosemary and discussed my answers, I felt a lot more comfortable and I had all my thoughts together.
The exercises are designed to teach good communication skills. Once John and Rosemary have had the chance to share their thoughts privately as a couple, they will rejoin the other participants for another conference led by the team. The purpose of these sessions is to give the engaged couples a realistic view of the commitment they are about to make.
But our life hasn't all been romance either. We've had our share of disillusionment. It's funny how when Fran and I were going together, the little things about her that I liked, even admired, starting to get to me after we got married. And when our first child was born, she seemed to be all caught up with diapers and bottles. She never seemed to have time for me. I actually began feeling jealous of that baby. I couldn't seem to understand myself, let alone Fran. I began thinking that I guess I didn't know her as well as I thought I did.
I think when we were together on the weekend, our time was probably more productive than it usually is, just because there were certain situations or questions presented to us that we either never thought of or avoided purposely.
Probably one of the issues that I would like to avoid more than anything are my jealousies and insecurities. I'd like him to perceive me as a cool, calm person, very confident, but I'm not, and I don't like to discuss things that, you know, put me in a vulnerable situation. To have actual married couples at this weekend really meant a lot to us because they shared their own personal experiences, and it meant a lot more. Not only were they interesting experiences, but you realize that these people have actually gone through these situations.
For us, true joy is the time when we're completely focused in on each other. Times when we put aside our own self-centeredness and we focus on us as a couple. Times when the squeeze of a hand or the special look says more than 1,000 words. When we know without a doubt that our love is the most important thing in the world.
As an expression of that love, the couples participating in an engaged encounter are asked to write a betrothal pledge that they may choose to share publicly at the closing liturgy.
I think the betrothal pledge maybe it makes them more aware that God's a part of their marriage or is going to be a part of their marriage. There's something to being able to state that in front of people.
You are and always will be the center of my world. I pledge to continually try to improve our relationship so that the whole of our relationship is greater than the sum of its parts.
I promise to give my love to you and to accept your love in return so that we may grow in unity and use this unity as a source of strength to develop both individually and together.
I saw the church's role is a lot more active than it used to be. I think it was good that they provided guidance, really, and I didn't feel like once I'm done with the weekend or once I'm married that they'll shut me off or they'll shut us off.
And I think that the church stressed the fact that, you know, they're not just there for problems, you know, for marital problems or engaged problems. The church should be an active, everyday part of your life. And I think, you know, seeing all the positive side, all the time and all the effort put into a program like this by the Catholic Church give people probably a more positive attitude on the church's role.
We'd like to take this opportunity to wish John and Rosemary all the best for their upcoming April wedding.
But more important, we wish them and the other couples we saw a lifetime of health, happiness, and the blessing of children.
Up next, Father Tom Legere will discuss our spiritual roots in our relationships feature.
And Mike Gallagher will take us to see 2 new movies, A Soldier's Story and Cal. Stay with us. Earlier this evening, we saw how prison terms opened the door for some to a closer relationship with Christ. In relationships this evening, Father Tom Legere will show us how difficulties in our own lives can offer the same opportunity to us.
Greetings in the Lord. Aren't these the most magnificent old roots you've ever seen? Roots are extremely important to the life of this tree, because if these roots were not strong and did not burrow deep into the earth, there's no way that this tree could stand up straight. For ourselves, too, we all have roots. We have spiritual roots. And if we don't get in touch with those spiritual roots, there is no way that we can ever be truly peaceful and joyful and loving people. But the question is, how do we go about getting in touch with those spiritual roots? God is the one who initiates the process. God calls us to go deep within and to look for the kingdom buried deep in our hearts. But most of us don't want to do that. We don't want to let go. And so we fight the process. God then gifts us with what I call divine discontent. He makes us feel like there must be something more in life. It doesn't feel like it's much of a gift at the time because it's very painful. Inevitably, it seems to involve an internal struggle. But that really can be the best thing that's ever happened to us. Now, not everyone goes through a big traumatic experience in the middle of their lives. There are some people who are known as what we refer to as smooth evolvers. They go through lots of little mini crises along the way. But most of us, in fact, need to be broken in some way by life if we are ever to discover the kingdom within. In fact, Thomas Merton says that what is referred to as the conversion experience for a lot of our medieval mystics is what we would refer to today clinically as a nervous breakdown. So when we find ourselves in some sort of an internal upheaval, it is not necessarily the worst thing that has ever happened to us. In fact, it can be a blessing in disguise. It is a law of nature that the old must give way to the new. And it's no tragedy at all, of course, that we see these leaves that are beginning to fall down around us. And it's no tragedy at all that we have to let go sometimes so that new life can be born in us. We're never going to be happy until we quit fighting the process and step into the mystery of God.
Next time on Relationships, we'll rejoin Dr. Richard Fitzgibbons as he offers his insights on our personal relationships. But now Mike Gallagher is here to discuss two up-and-coming box office attractions, one of which was penned by Philadelphian Charles Fuller.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. We live in an age more sophisticated than wise, and so we become adept at using words to confuse what's at issue rather than clarify it. So let me do my bit for clarity by rescuing the word adult from the slew of self-serving jargon and recommend two truly adult movies, A Soldier's Story and Cal. A Soldier's Story is based upon the Pulitzer Prize-winning play by Charles Fuller. A black sergeant, after a drunken night in the town, is murdered on his way back to an army camp in Louisiana. The time is 1944. A young black captain, a lawyer, comes from Washington to investigate. Captain Davenport suspects that the murdered man, Sergeant Waters, was a victim of the Klan, or, as it later develops, of two white officers with whom he had a run-in. Things turn out to be far more complicated than that, however. Sergeant Waters was a ruthless tyrant, obsessed with the ideal of perfection that the Army had given him. The winner of the Croix de Guerre in the First World War, he thought that he had succeeded in a white man's world by playing by the white man's exacting rules. He was merciless, moreover, to any black man who was happy to settle for less, especially if he got by playing the fool for his white masters, the accepted role of the shiftless, happy-go-lucky black. The most gripping aspect of this film is the tortured personality of the sergeant and the diverse origins of the passion that made him act as he did. It's something, however, I wish that Fuller and director Norman Jewison had explored a little more deeply. I also wasn't too happy with the upbeat ending of everybody going off to war. There's no discernible irony in Jewison's depiction of the black soldier's joy in finally getting the chance to go off and get killed for a society that treats them as inferior, though I understand that Fuller did make this very point in his play. Adolph Caesar, however, gives such a superbly realized performance as a tormented Sergeant Waters that it makes any defects in the writing or direction seem almost inconsequential. In a well-nigh perfect cast, Howard E. Rollins and Larry Riley also stand out as Davenport and as a Southern black who earns Waters' special enmity. Cal is an Irish film, and it also has to do with violence brought on by bigotry and hatred reinforced by the numbing weight of history and custom. Cal is an unemployed Catholic youth in his early 20s. He lives with his widowed father in a Protestant neighborhood in Belfast. He spends his days in a vain search for work and in doing odd jobs now and then. He also spends a good deal of time listening to American music on his beloved stereo and playing his guitar. Thanks to a past favor, Cal has been drawn into the lethal orbit of the IRA and obliged to do his bit for the cause now and then. One of these bits a year before involved him in the cold-blooded murder of a Protestant policeman. Cal drove the car for the IRA assassin, and the killing haunts his memory. Now, however, he finds himself drawn to the widow of the murdered man, a quiet, gentle woman named Marcella. Knowing that no good can come of it, but worn down by sorrow and isolation, Marcella encourages Cal's attention, and the two begin an affair whose outcome but confirms Marcella's prescience. Thanks to the fine and sensitive collaboration of first-time director Pat O'Connor and novelist Bernard McClaverty, Cal has a poignant force that will make it linger long in your memory. The film belongs in a very special way to Helen Mirren, whose marvelous portrayal of the complex Marcella won her Best Actress Award at the Cannes Festival. Cal doesn't break any new ground in helping us to understand the agony of Northern Ireland, but what it does do is make us feel that agony in a way we may not have before. Finally, a cautionary note is very much in order. Cal is extremely mature fare and not for younger viewers. There is some nudity in it and one restrained but nonetheless fairly graphic love scene. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
Late in the 1800s, someone said that all the world's important discoveries had already been made.
And way back in the Old Testament, the author of the book of Ecclesiastes said that there's nothing new under the sun. Well, with all due respect to those two opinions, discoveries are always being made, whether in relation to ourselves, to others, or to Jesus Christ.
Next week, we'll meet an award-winning writer of children's books.
And visit the last church bell foundry in America.
Rosemary Bruno will be along to keep us updated on current events.
We'll meet the inventor of the Kurzweil reader.
And meet a man who makes non-violent video games.
And don't forget to let us know what you think of Reel to Reel. Send your comments and suggestions to Reel to Reel, 222 North 17th Street, room 907, Philadelphia 19103.
Be sure to join us next week for Reel to Reel. Good night.
Good night, and remember, Jesus is Lord.